What's up, guys? We are back with the 0 Hour. Tim Lloyd, Jeff Hobbs, and we are in the afterglow of Aries Fight Series 16 recap and reaction episode for you guys today, as promised. And Jeff, what a show, man! Aries 16 is in the books. Went down this past Saturday night from the Chattanooga Convention Center, our new home downtown Chattanooga, and man, just an incredible night. I mean, we talked it up. Hyped it up in the lead up, and luckily it didn't disappoint. We had a great crowd. Energy was through the roof, literally from beginning to end. We never really had that your typical prelims where people were kind of still straggling in, and you might hear a little pop here and there for someone, but I mean, it was pretty full before we ever got started, and it was live, man. We're going to recap it here today. Before we jump into it, I would implore you to like and subscribe to the podcast. Hit the subscription bell, notification bell. You'll get notified whenever we put up new content here, and those videos will be going up here after 30 days. Right now, though, you can see Aries 15 videos up here. Also, shout out to our friends at Smoky Mountain CBD. Check them out at SmokyMountainCBD.com. They hooked up all the VIP tables with nice swag bags and our award winners for the night as well. We'll see them again in Knoxville, and we always appreciate their support. Jeff, man, are you recovered yet? It took me a couple days. I mean, anymore, it does take me a couple days, but it definitely took me a good couple days to really, kind of overcome the weekend. It was definitely adrenaline filled. We were busy. We were, putting out fires left and right from various angles, and end of the day, man, we pulled off a good one.
Yeah, definitely. Got home Sunday and tried my damnedest to stay awake, but I think I lay down on the bed about 3:00 and I didn't wake up till Monday morning at 5 a.m. time to go to work. So, it was a card that you hyped up and you just hoped that it was going to deliver everything on paper said it should deliver. It's just a blessing, a huge blessing that it did, from start to finish. Like you said, not even the start of the show at 4:00 when the girls came from out front where they were setting up their stuff at the table to tell us that there's already a line down the hallway at 4:00. We knew that this was going to be different. And it was like a running of the bulls at 5 when it was officially doors open. And I've never seen a regional show, I should say. I've never seen a regional show like that where from the moment the doors opened, it was absolutely packed. Those pictures that were taken of the event and the venue, those weren't pictures taken right in the meat of the night. That was before the show even started. It was absolutely amazing. It was everything we hoped it was going to be. And I can honestly say there wasn't a fight on that card that wasn't good, that didn't have some sort of intrigue. Maybe there was one or two that if you really looked deep into them, you thought maybe this one won't be as close as we hope. Not only were those close, they went the wrong way, or not the wrong way, but the different way than what we thought. So even those were just absolutely just thrillers. So I'm ready to relive it one fight at a time.
Let's get into it, man. Of course, you can catch the replay still at Spectation Sports. So if you want to see what we're talking about, of course, you can go there. And, this is one of those cards where, I was pleasantly surprised with well, I don't want to say surprised, but impressed, I'll say, with our fight fans' IQ as far as when it comes to, like, when they know something's good and when they know that, like, a card is deep. Because a lot of these guys, they're there to see their pal or their buddy, and they don't really necessarily pay that much attention to the rest of the card. This is one where it's like everybody knew going in. This is a big card. There's so many good fights on this card, and let's jump into it. Of course, we only had one Muay Thai fight here, and that was Malicious Broderick Kelsey taking on Logan Metters, who stepped in on very short notice, about a week's notice. Maybe a week and a half out of Lawrenceburg Combat Club. We went all 3 rounds here and ended up being a 30-27 unanimous decision win for Broderick Kelsey. Watching it back, I agree with that for sure. I thought Logan had his best round in the second round. He had a little spurt there, and honestly, Logan, tough guy. He would land arguably the harder of the punches. It's just the accumulation and the volume from Broderick was just pretty nonstop. Not just a ton of juice on any one of them, but the accumulation over 3 rounds. And Logan, was a little banged up there at the end. 30-27 for Broderick Kelsey. And according to Coach Tom Galicchio, we may be getting to see Broderick dip his toe into the MMA waters here pretty soon. As for Logan Metters, hopefully we see him again soon. I'm sure we will after it's been a while since he's competed. Now with these Lawrenceburg guys competing on the upcoming cards, I'm sure he'll keep the bug.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the scorecards, and I agree with your analysis of it. It was really just Broderick Kelsey staying active, continuously keeping that distance, popping the jab, and it was just the accumulation of shots. It was going to be hard at the pace that Broderick was keeping that Logan was going to be able to convince the judges that he was winning each round with just the activity of Broderick Kelsey. And he's a big body, too. Taller guy, big body for that weight class. So I'm interested. I'm intrigued about the possibility in the MMA. We've seen these guys before where they come to us initially in these kickboxing matches, and we wrongly assume that maybe that's all they do. And so I'm curious to maybe learn a little more about how proficient he may be in some other areas, if the thought of going into an MMA fight is on the horizon.
All right, first MMA bout of the evening, a featherweight bout. It was Shiesty Sammy Shire, who we had talked about a lot leading up to this. Decorated wrestler takes a break from his collegiate wrestling season to come step back into the cage at 2-0. He's taking on the 0-2 Scotty Everhart Rowan Wrestling Academy, and man, this one was the first of several, I would say, upsets over the course of the evening. Scotty Everhart dominated throughout the first 2 rounds. Sammy Shire really just showing very well-rounded skill set, winning the wrestling exchanges, winning the grappling exchanges, dominant positions, probably getting the better of the striking team. Everhart down 2-0 going into the third round, and they begin the third round with an exchange in the middle. Both guys landed something pretty solid. I noticed that Sammy's eye started to swell a little bit. I don't know, and I don't know if that maybe just kind of got his head rattled or off of his focus, as it were. But the scramble exchange that followed saw Scotty Everhart snag up a guillotine, and it was deep. We all at cage side kind of thought that I think the Sammy was going to slip out of there eventually, but he persevered for a good while and eventually had to submit to that guillotine of Scotty Everhart, who moves to 1-2. Big upset. I think fair to say the biggest upset of the night, and there were several. But I think that Sammy will certainly take from this. I think that if anything, he will not leave his head out there, very often again, to be snagged up in a choke. But all the talent in the world. He's a young guy. He seems very sensible, and will likely take this in stride and improve from it. Scotty Everhart, the night was his at the end of the day, and moving to 1-2 and with a win like that, it sets up some interesting fights for him as well. That I would be interested in seeing maybe a Cody Stewart or something along those lines for him in the near future. Your take here on this featherweight affair?
Well, I can't remember the time on the fight, but if it was an 8-minute fight, 7 minutes and 59 seconds were dominated by Sammy Shires. But it only takes 1 second. Not to take anything away from Scotty Everhart, but Sammy just coming off a wrestling season. He hasn't been in a gym. He hasn't been in an MMA gym at all since he last competed for us a year ago. But like we talked about before, this was such a card everyone wanted to be a part of. His wrestling season ended, NAIA champion his freshman year, and he sat home for a couple of weeks and watched teammate Bryce Warner get ready for this card, and he just like, I've got to do it. I got to jump in there. And who are we to say no? But like I said, young kid who is completely got a huge future in front of him. He will bounce back from this. He's a true competitor. He's not going to let this get him down. and we're going to see a lot more of Sammy Shires. But what do you say about Scotty Everhart? And again, we say it over and over again with this Rowan crew. Scotty Everhart came into this fight knowing he was the underdog, knowing his back was against the wall, knowing everyone expected him to lose this fight. And but that's what those guys do. They just take the fight, they take the challenge, and they give
They
it.
wanted to be on a big card too.
Yes, and they
You know,
give it everything they got. And that's why they were on the big card, is because of all those little cards, all those Joe shows, those all Amy shows that they just show up for time and time again. That's why they got on this card, is because they were just proven to be, competitors and team players and down for the promotion whenever we need them. They're the ones filling in. They're the ones we're calling on late notice, and they're saying, "Hell yeah, just tell me when, tell me where." And that's why these guys were rewarded by being a part of this big card. And he did not disappoint. He did not, he rose to the occasion, and just absolutely, heart of a lion for this kid, because he took some punishment for about 2 rounds, and just stayed the course. And like you said, man, the Rohan corner, it was almost, you just watched just maybe months of just relief and elation that just poured out of them at that
it's
point.
like they got their seat at the big boy table almost. You
Yes,
know,
absolutely. Because I think everybody that was part of that gym felt that win, man. They felt it. They felt the from when they were in the fight, and haven't come out on the right side of it. They all won that fight, and this was not the end of their good night. That's the this was the party continued for Rowan Saturday night. But it was a good fight, and like you said, just so early in the card to get your first upset, it was wild to see.
up next, we had a light heavyweight bout. It was Austin Higdon now representing Ogogi Combatives for the first time. And he's a transplant from up in or down in Alabama, and he trained, I want to say, with Jeff Powell and that gang, and just some other smaller gyms down there in Alabama. But when lots of his pals like Trevor Peak and the like made the move to Ogogi, he was not far behind. He takes on Robbie Burns out of the Reed Regiment. He is, we hadn't seen him in a little bit, but both these guys come in at 1 and 2, and I tell you what, both of these guys had were really impressive. Honestly, I thought that first off, Robbie Burns physically was like, whoa, like he was always a tall, long, lanky guy with good reach and a good build, but he's really filled out. To become a guy that you could look at and be like, yeah, it's middleweight, light heavyweight, Anyway, very physical, yet Austin Higdon, one of your more unassuming fighters. Very nice guy. You're probably one of the nicest guys that you'll come across, and not a physically imposing fellow, not a very aggressive demeanor outside the cage, but this is one where he really just kind of we got a brawl to start, and then once we went to the ground, Higdon was able to out technique Burns and really kind of just make very good example of what he's been learning there at Agogi as he gets a first round submission over the bigger, longer, younger Robbie Burns with a head and arm choke in the first round. Your take?
Yeah, I was a little scared when I saw Robbie Burns at weigh-ins. I had not seen him in a long, long time. Like I said, always a taller gentleman,
Mm-hmm.
but he took off his shirt, and Robbie done got thick.
Yeah.
His chest, his pecs, everything was just his shoulders. Everything had. He's been working out since we seen him last, and you always saw the potential in Robbie Burns, but you always thought that maybe he was a little too weak for the weight class, not strong enough for the weight class, not heavy enough for the weight class. All that weight that kept him in the weight class was through his height. So when we saw him at weigh-ins, it was like, oh shit, this could be a problem, for Austin Higdon. Like I said, Austin steps up. There's different kinds of in shape, and I'm sure Austin Higdon is in gym shape and fight shape. But I mean, he doesn't have a six pack. He's not working on his summer bod. Um, and you thought, well, this could get interesting. I'd never had the pleasure of, I've just, have met Austin and become acquainted with him. And, I don't know his past fights. But I was definitely intrigued. with the amount of support that came with Austin. So you knew right away that this was a great guy. Um, but his time at Agogi, there's so many that have kind of transplanted over to Agogi now. Not just Chattanooga fighters, a lot of Alabama fighters are making their way up and making the drive to Agogi to train with those guys. So you just wondered, how much of that, short time that he's been there, him, Peak, all of them kind of came about the same time. How was that going to translate in the cage? And I was absolutely amazed at just the determination the kid had and the skill that Austin Higdon had. And it was a beautiful submission. I didn't see this going as a submission. I thought at some point somebody's winning this by ground and pound, in my opinion,
Mm.
after watching it. But to find that position and stick with it and finish it was absolutely amazing. And Austin Higdon was also your Tennessee Army National Guard
Mm.
toughest Hickory Award winner. So the Army National Guard. This was early in the card, and
Yeah,
we did not ask for the winner until the end of the card. And
they
he
remembered him.
they remembered him, like he made an impression. So I thought it was going to be okay. This is going to be an Andrew Stewart, maybe a Finn Martin, Xavier Horton type. Nope. Austin Higdon, man, it was no question. So um, it was cool to see. It was great to see him and his wife, and how much his win meant to him and everybody else. So um, I'll be excited to see what else might be. How it was a long time in between his last fight and this one. Uh, how long is it going to be before we see Austin Higdon again? That'll be it's the question now.
Yeah, I spoke to him briefly the past couple of days, just touching base, and seemed to be basking in the afterglow and ready to get at it again. So lots of fun matches, I think, for him at 205 that are out there floating around. I believe that can make for some interesting bouts, and we'll see how things shake out. Robbie Burns, same thing. Spoke to him today. Actually, he wanting to get up on one of the next two cards we've got at the Joe. So another guy where I could see some pretty interesting fights for him, a James Ard and something like that would probably be pretty good. All right, let's move on to the next one. We said that Rowan Wrestling Academy wasn't done, and they were right up again here in this next bout. It was a 155 bout. Noah Lewin came into this bout, and I guess let's see. Noah was 0-1 in this one, I think, coming in, taking on Landon Reed. And Landon Reed, a debut out of Militia MMA there, Tom Galicchio and crew, UTC wrestler, very highly decorated wrestler, two-time state champion out of Georgia. Noah Lewin, of course, tall, rangy, a 6 foot tall guy, 155 pounds. And again, this bout, Reed showed his wrestling early, big takedown, had some good positions, but then got a little bit lazy in position late in the first round. And Noah Lewin gets a triangle win. Big submission for Rowan Wrestling Academy, who is showing off the submissions chops on this evening, going 2-0 in two bouts that one would probably book them as the underdog in both, given the wrestling credentials of their opponents, and submissions in both, and buck wild corners after both.
Yeah, absolutely. Another situation where we had a highly decorated, highly wrestling skilled person in the cage, and submission and BJJ was the difference here. Um, what do you say, man? Two up, two down for the row in wrestling crew, and they were on cloud nine at this point, and they should have been. It was well deserved. Um, I thought Lewin was a debut, but he may have been
No, I
0-1.
think you're right. I'm thinking Noah
Yeah,
Basinger instead of Noah
yeah, I
Lewin.
think
Yeah.
this was a debut against debut here. Um, but again, two very talented, men. Even Landon Reed coming out on the wrong side of this um, bout. I mean, he's still got. I mean, he's with a great gym with Tom. He's got a bright future ahead of him. Shit just happens, man. Somebody's got to lose. But again, a quality fight that you did not see going that way, and that's what makes these nights so fun. When it's just those ooh and ah moments, and again, a round one submission by the underdog, and he would have had to have been the underdog just based on Landon Reed's wrestling credentials. He was the one from UTC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing, another amazing finish.
you know, and there's something to be said maybe when you have these early upsets, does that ripple through the locker room a little bit? These guys that are on the out of town side are all warming up on that side. You're seeing some wind start to come back through there early, and
You had the
uh,
numbers, but blue corner, red
yeah,
corner was back and forth, and there was a
mm-hmm,
time. I'm sure you'll tell us here at the end, which who came out with more. But I know there was a couple times you were like, Jeff, blue corner's two bouts ahead.
yeah.
They'd gotten up, two up on the red corner on the hometown guys. So it was a back and forth battle, uh, from both colors.
All right, our final preliminary bout, another one that we are really looking forward to, light heavyweights, as Big Luke Wilson returned to the cage, not on the refereeing side of things on this evening, and he looked to go to 2-0 with a win over Isaac White. DC Combat, he was making his debut. Man, these guys just they just went out there and got at it, man. There wasn't any grappling going on here. These guys were, even though
No.
both guys I would say are from grappling heavy schools, man, they're just throwing them bombs. And it was there was a right hook I want to say from Luke that really kind of stunned. You could tell it stunned Isaac quite a bit. He kind of like was looking off like another direction there for a moment. Another one crushed his nose. Come to find out, talked to his coach yesterday, broke his nose at that point, and then the next one sat him down, and that was all she wrote. TKO win for Luke Wilson. He moves to 2-0 now, and one win by submission, one win by knockout. As Isaac White hopefully recovers fairly quickly, but Luke, a great guy, one of my favorite guys on the scene, and he ends up going to 2-0. And who knows if the Bugs still may have him? I don't know if Luke's hanging him up just yet.
I don't think so. And I know he's already reached out, so might as well tell the world he's already reached out. He's not done. I think he wants to keep pushing himself until he finds the guy who whoops his ass.
Yeah,
just you know,
right.
he's going to keep going, just until he finds that person, just until it happens. Um, but yeah, these guys, there was no feeling out. That's for damn sure. They both came in guns a blazing, and Luke's punches looked a lot better this one than his last
Mhm.
fight. Last fight, they came in kind of rapid fire. They were coming from the hip more, but his precision was a little better this time, and his striking looked better. It looked more crisp this time, and you could tell because he connected with a couple of good shots that were beautiful that dropped Isaac White. Isaac was tough, and he was in it, but
Mhm.
they we joke around. Our announcer calls him Big Luke Wilson all the time. So now we've started,
Yeah.
but he's big because he's tall. He's just a tall, rangy guy, and with the strikes on point and with that length and reach, he was able to connect just beautifully right at the end of the punches and drop Isaac White.
Moving on to the undercard here, and if you look at the results here on the prelims, you're going to see like 3 first round finishes, but it doesn't really give the testament to like those 3 first round finishes were all still kind of like you know, going could have gone either way until they didn't, essentially. So it's a little misleading when you see just the results on paper. First undercard bout, another first round finish, and damn, was this one something else. I think this one left a lot of people stunned. As Xavier Horton, he moves his record up to 4-3, above 500 again, as he gets a big first round knockout win over the previously undefeated Peruvian hammer Richard Guerrero 2 seconds in, Jeff, and it's like I don't even know if this is possible to be beat. It's obviously a new Aries record, and I don't know that it's possible to beat a 2 second knockout. And I mean, you have to essentially teleport over to your opponent and knock them out. So, man, a legitimate 2 second knockout. I mean, this is on the first exchange. As soon as they met in the middle, it was one pop, and he went down, followed by a big hammer fist, and Richard was out. He recovered pretty quickly, I'll say that, but. Yeah, I mean, at that time, he was out, and Xavier Horton comes back with a big win, and Xavier is a guy that has tested himself against the very, very best out there, man. Richard Guerrero, Ron Humphreys, Jacob Adams. I mean, he's fought really tough guys. Mentioned in his post fight, he was about ready to go pro, and I think that certainly would suit him well. As for Richard Guerrero, seemed to be in good spirits afterward. I know he'll bounce back, hopefully sooner than later. It'd been a pretty good little respite there that he had taken from competing. So, but that said, he seemed like he was in good spirits. I know that he'll bounce back strong, and lots of interesting pro bouts potentially for Xavier Horton, who could make 155, I believe.
Whew, yeah, that would be something.
Horton and Beekman is one that I think would be like just real good.
Well, yeah, after Saturday night, looking at the two of them, yeah, absolutely, and Beekman being a debut Saturday night, um, I mean, there's a 1-0 versus a debut. That's
Yeah, that'd be
absolutely,
fire, I think.
yeah, that would be fire. But yeah, I'll go ahead and say too. I mean, this one even had our timekeeper a little frazzled because I don't think she could get the thing pushed quick enough.
Yeah,
Because she was kind of panicking. She was like, Jeff, I don't know that I pushed, like I had to go check the replay to try to get, the time on it. It was so quick.
yeah,
Um, and just that little hesitation of, and I timekeep a lot, obviously. And sometimes there's that let's fight, and you don't know whether to hit it right on this, or is it let's fight and then that just breath and then do it. And I think it was in that breath before hitting it.
it ended.
Yeah, and she went across there, and she was just like, I hadn't pushed the button yet, so I had to run over to the monitor real quick. But um, and I will say I've had some reach out saying, well, not say it, but question: was it a fake hand touch? Was it, did he did he fake the hand touch and just punt? No, he
I
didn't.
didn't see that. I didn't get that from it.
He did not. I think it was more asking,
Oh,
just
okay.
because
Yeah.
again, it happened. They was like, did that happen? Because it happened so quick. Um, but I don't know what else to say about this fight, Tim. You can't say anything else about the fight other than 2-second knockout. Xavier Horton won in 2 seconds. Can't talk about their performance. It was a great shot right down the fucking pipe. It literally was the definition of down the pipe and dropped Richard Guerrero. A referee stops it. Yes, Richard Guerrero's in good spirits. I saw his post the next day, letting everybody know, hey, shit happens, man. I'll be better than this next time. It was a long layoff, and he's got a great career going. Um, and I'm sure this will just keep him focused. But the story in this fight is what is to be, and that is if Xavier Horton's going to stick around any more fights as an amateur or jump into the pro ranks. And if he does, yeah, we've got a long list of people that we can make something happen with.
And he got that the proper 12 knockout of the night belt also
Yeah,
claimed. It's going to be hard for that to go to anyone else, even though there were certainly some candidates on that night. But yeah, Xavier, congratulations, proper 12 knockout of the night belt, and he was certainly happy to get that. All right, up next it was a light heavyweight bout. Finn Martin at a National MMA improves to 3-0 with a third round TKO by ground and pound over Militia MMA's Josh Mackey, who falls to 2-2. And Finn Martin was I guess the question coming in was, how's he going to look when he fights a guy that's, a little bit more trained up, a little more seasoned than his previous opponents, and obviously he passed the test with flying colors. As Josh Mackey was able to get his wrestling going somewhat early in the bout, but as the rounds were on, just not able to get in there and close the gap. Finn's a big guy, big long guy, tall. He's got the reach, uses it well. Obviously, he's got the grappling to go with it. But if he doesn't want you to engage with him, and you don't have the ability to close that pocket, it's going to be a long night. And it was a TKO win for Finn. It moves to 3-0. And Josh Mackey drops to 2-2. Spoke to now I couldn't tell if Josh was retiring after because he took his gloves off and was like, what's going on here? But I talked to Tom, and it looks like Josh is just going to step away until he can get to 185. So Josh will be moving down to 185. Probably the best move for a guy that is just is going to be giving up the height and reach to these heavyweights and light heavyweights.
yeah. I mean, Josh is a guy he's only at 205 because he's been in the process of just a life changing, transformation of his body. I mean, this was a guy who was a good size heavyweight, and he's been on this weight loss journey. 205 has just been a stop off on his journey, so it would make sense that he probably wants to continue on and see and find that weight that suits his body better as he loses it. He just happens to be in the light heavyweight division on his journey right now. But you're absolutely right. Finn Martin, we were a part of his first two fights and his first two wins.
Mm-hmm.
And not to take anything away from Finn Martin, but I mean the guys he was fighting against, they were younger guys, newer guys, smaller gyms, as far as training partners and the level of training partners. So it was hard to really get a read on how good is Finn, uh,
Mm-hmm.
just based on the competition before. We knew Mackey, like you said, was going to be a step up in competition. He absolutely has the skills. We've seen him in bad spots before in pull-out wins. Um, he's got a good wrestling background. He's quick for his size
Mm-hmm.
too. So we knew that this was going to be a step up, and it could get interesting. But like you said, Finn did very well, kind of trying to keep the distance when he needed to. But the thing about Finn Martin is if he gets his arms wrapped around your body, if he gets underhooks and gets his arms wrapped around your chest or your waist, that's kind of he gets that vice
Yeah,
grip.
it's a big slam.
Yes, it's the old school, the WWF bear hug. When you
Yeah.
can end a fight with the bear hug, but when he gets those arms around you, um, and especially the height difference he had over Josh Mackey. I mean, he was just kind of able to ragdoll and just you know do what he wanted with him and get him down to his knees and that traditional ground and pound where Mackey was on all fours and Finn was able to come up through the arms, come up from the bottom, and really do some damage. So it was a good win, and it was good to also see that Mackey was, or that Finn, with his size, was able to go into the third round as
Mm.
well, and still look, pretty fresh in the third round. So uh, Finn doesn't fight often, but uh, he's going to be one that we're going to be asking every once in a while to see what his plans are and what he wants to do, because at 3-0, it's going to be hard to avoid some certain fights just based on your record and your dominance in your last one. So there will be some interesting fights out there if he's wanting to stay active. I know his job and his career keep him away at times, but a name we mentioned earlier, Luke Wilson, didn't make any bones about it, and he did it with the most respect at all. He was just like, "Hey, I think me and Finn, is the way to go. He's 3-0, I'm 2-0. I think that's a good guy that I can find out where I'm at against." And don't know that it will happen. Don't know if it won't, but it's definitely something you and I have talked about, and it's interesting. It's interesting.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
All right, up next was our final bout before we hit the titles for the amateurs, and these guys had I think I think it's safe to say, Jeff, between these two that they had the most fans in the building there to watch them.
Yeah,
Close, damn
yeah,
close, if not. No,
yeah.
am I wrong? Oh, okay. Yeah, Jeff Jankowski taking on Miles Peak at 185 pounds, and two great guys, man. Two of your, two of your less physically assuming guys on the card, but if you've seen these guys fight, they both bring it. They both are, pedal to the metal from the word go, and that's what we got here. As it was Lawrenceburg Combat Club's Jeff Jankowski getting the win by TKO. Was it KO or TKO, actually,
They
Jeff?
called it KO. I think
Okay.
they called it
Yeah,
KO.
yeah. So KO, because there wasn't like a follow up, punch or whatever. So, I mean, both guys had their moments throughout that round. The crowd was going nuts. And I mean, they were right behind us. So, they, I don't know if it was by design, but you had just essentially put the walkout between them, and they were like shouting at each other like over the walkout. It was a scene for sure, but a lot of high energy for that one. It was Jeff Jankowski getting the win by knockout. The call was questioned, I think, by a few people that thought it was a little early. As Miles was starting to get up by the time the referee got there, but I'll let you explain, your take on it after we were able to kind of watch it back. Of course, everything in real time is a little bit more bang bang, a little tougher to make split second decisions. But the right call, I think, ultimately was made, and both guys should hold their head up. For one, they both put on a great fight, had the crowd on their feet. Both guys, willing to go out on their shield, essentially, just to trade in the middle of the ring. Nobody was really trying to grapple. Those guys were throwing, and Jeff Jankowski gets the win. And looks like we'll hopefully be seeing more of both these guys soon, man. Both top notch guys, great fan bases, and a pleasure to host them.
Yeah, it was Rock'em Sock'em Robots. That's for sure. But hell, we never hid the fact or lied. They put this fight together themselves. We take no credit for it. They put it together. They brought it to us, and they did it because they knew the other one was going to bring out the best in the other one, and that they knew the other was going to be the perfect dance partner to steal the show and put on a fight, a fan and crowd friendly fight. And that's exactly what they did, regardless of who won. It was back and forth. When Jankowski would get, Miles backed up against the fence, and you thought, Miles is covered up, the heavy shots were coming, and you thought this is not good. Miles would find a way to push the action back to the center and back to the other side of the cage with his flurry. It was, I mean, it was absolutely exciting. The crowd had been great up to this point, but this was the point, and we knew it. We talked about it. This was where it was going to go to another level, and it did from this point on. I really don't have necessarily a take on the knockout or the call. What I've got though is, I've been online and I've read all the different comments and things like that, and one of the ones I saw most was, well, you're not out if you're not out. There's no way he was getting up, and that was just the argument. He was getting up, but again, if you've watched the sport, very long, you've seen people just reaction stand up, and then what do? They stumble and fall down. So, granted, just the word knockout doesn't always necessarily mean you are unconscious. And we've seen that happen. We don't know if he was going to stand up and stumble to where the referee would step in and grab him, because the referee stepped in and grabbed him before he could stand all the way up. But on the flip side, we don't know that he wasn't going to stand up, put his dukes up, and be ready to go again. But to say that just because he wasn't unconscious, that he wasn't out is not fair either, because we've just seen it happen too many times. There is an angle of the video and shot where you see the referee step in and put his arms around him. And what I was looking for was that from that angle, and it was a great angle. I was looking for Peak to, look up to the referee and maybe argue the call, or look up and be like, "What the fuck you doing? What? I'm here. I'm out." And the referee had his arm around him, and Miles lays his head down in the referee's arm. And, that was, I'm not saying that's the end all be all of this, yes or no argument. But again, I was looking for that look up in that argument to the ref. And instead, you got the lay of the head down in his arm. And that could have been, one, just frustration, or it could have been because, yeah, I'm going to lay my head for a second and get my wits about me because I was rocked. We don't know. But I don't think it was so egregious that you could say it was unfair to Miles Peak.
For an amateur fight, too.
Yes, but you could also say it was unfair because you could just be from that mindset where, and a lot of these guys are. And Miles said it after the fight. He goes, I would just rather him let him beat the shit out of me in front of everybody to know for sure was I out, or that I was out. And but it's an amateur fight, and a lot of referees are not going to let that happen. They're not going to let you take an unnecessary shot if they don't have to, and that's what the referee decided, to do. But it does not. I don't care what side of the coin you're on that. It does not take away or mar the amount of seconds and minutes that those two were in the cage.
Rematch, anyone? All right. Up next, we have got the first of three title fights, vacant 125-pound title at first. We were set for 5 rounds. We only got through 2 those. Bryce Warner gets a second round submission via guillotine over Maverick Cooper to become our new Aries flyweight champion in the amateur division. Record moves to 4-2. Cooper drops to 2-1. Good fight here, as we knew it would be. High pace, good action the whole way. Both guys had their moments, I thought, with the striking, and ultimately it was Bryce that was able to just kind of land the more damaging blows in the second round to where he started to get Maverick on his back foot a little bit more, and able to get the submission, finish it off in the second round. And one of the more complete performances we've seen out of Bryce Werner. We've seen look good many times, but sometimes there'd be like a little asterisk next to it. And there are no asterisks this time. Nice win for Bryce Werner. Proud to have him as our champ. Maverick Cooper took the loss in stride. Another both these guys are super young. Great careers ahead of them, and I look forward to working with both continually.
Yeah. This was counterpunch city right here. That's what, both of their game plans are, and they're beautiful at it. They're beautiful at the counterpunch. They want to see what you're throwing, and they want to come back with their stuff. And both of them do it, beautifully. Lot of impressive head kicks and spinning back kicks in this. Bryce Werner landed one of the more beautiful spinning back kicks. Just the flat of the foot right across the, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But they
And then he
both
told me afterwards, like, my ankle was messed up, so I couldn't do my kicks. Like, but you kicked him in the head.
Yeah. I think it was the other one, the plant ankle that he was worried, or that was bothering him. But even then, I was just like, you planted everything. Put all your weight on that foot and spun on it. But I guess the adrenaline in the cage.
Yeah.
But I will say to a lot of people at the end, when they say I was injured and this and that, everybody goes, yeah. I will say, for the record, he did reach out before the days leading up to the fight to me, asking me, what does the commission allow you to do as far as taping your ankle up, things like that. So not trying to get out of the fight, but like, what are the rules on supporting your ankle during a fight? So I know he did have some concerns about that, but I agree. I watched his last fight was with another promotion, and he looked really good in that fight. But for us, definitely in person, this was the most complete fight. Didn't seem to have just that. I don't want to say immature in a bad way, but just that he didn't have those brain farts that we've seen him have before. He was really focused in this bout, and hell, it showed. I think Bryce Werner, Maverick Cooper, obviously young too, and has a shit ton of potential, but Bryce Warner's got the same amount of potential, but he's got just a little cockiness and nastiness to him that kind of separates him from the Maverick Coopers, because he's just got a little mean streak in him, and I think that's I think maybe the only thing that differentiates him between a couple of others in that weight class. So anyway, this one was great. Got to see a couple of good rounds out of him, and excited to see Bryce Werner as a champion. I know he was upset because he really wanted that Vincent Van Alstyne fight, and I'm sure that somebody, when he decides to go pro, that he will be looking for as soon as he makes that turn.
Amateur co-main event, originally slated to be for our first ever female bantamweight title at 135. Weight issues ended up making this a featherweight title defense instead, for Mary Rosenbeck, who's already our 145 champion, where she had won that in the first meeting between these two, as Mary Rosenbeck took on Samantha Buttery in a rematch. Mary once again successfully defending her 145 Aries title with a fifth round TKO this time. They went all 5 rounds last time, so this one was probably about midway through the 5th round. The ladies have almost fought with each other 10 full rounds in there, so they should know each other pretty well. The difference in this one, I thought, and we talked about this in the previous show, Samantha had some success with grappling in the first encounter and then kind of abandoned it late. And we thought maybe that could have been the difference in her getting the wrong end of that split decision. But in this one, there was no grappling exchanges by anyone. Like, no one was going for any takedowns. We don't expect Mary to. Samantha never really did either. She was content to show off her striking here. And Mary just, just a touch ahead every time. Stayed on the attack, aggressive, constantly coming forward and getting off first. And again, not just crazy power behind anything, but just activity, accumulation, and technique. Eventually wore her down, and Samantha maybe started to fade a little bit. It looked like in the fourth, I want to say, in the fifth round, a body shot was what finished the deal here as Mary successfully defends her title for a second time, actually, the defense over Sierra Buxton in between, and made the decision to go pro. And that is exciting, of course, and lots of fun things I could think of there. Of course, Samantha Buttery, I'd be interested to see what happens there next. A fight that kind of immediately pops to mind after talking to James Gray about his fighters coming back down. Sierra Buxton's back in the mix, and so that's two fighters that have the common opponent, obviously in Mary. I think that'd be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, like you said, two girls who know each other very well. Um, Almost 10 full rounds between them. I do say though, I know you said no one, and I wouldn't really say she attempted takedowns, but one of the things I noticed though, very opportunistically, Mary would. I mean, it kind of. We commented at one point about it though. She would take a moment and push Budgery up against the cage and go down like she's going to try and attempt a takedown and kind of grab the double leg or around the thighs. Um, but it was she just held her up against the cage with that thought of, am I going to try to take you down, and ate up some clock, but it also just mixed it up a little bit. Like, am I going, almost like, just fucking with her? Am I going to switch up on you now and try to take you down? uh, and it's part of the game plan, eating some of the clock too. The less time you can give your opponent to rebound or get her shit off, the better it is for you. And so it was able to kind of switch it up on her, push her up against the cage. But, um, I heard some people want to let me see the scorecards, or I'd like to see the scorecards on that one. I think ultimately, like you said, not a lot of power. We're not counting power shots necessarily, but Mary is consistent with her volume, and she's consistent with her combos. It's never just a one punch with Mary Rosenbeck. Uh, she is throwing her combinations exactly how she was taught them, and the order that she was taught them, and that activity uh, impresses judges. It impresses them. I don't want to say it fools them. It impresses them that she is disciplined on her combos, and I think that bodes well for her in her fights. And like I said, nothing real powerful, but it is an accumulation that will start to wear on an opponent. And it just seems like in this instance with an opponent she's seen twice, it's been that same thing. I personally thought, with Samantha being the person who came on the short end of the stick in the first fight, that she would be the one to come in and do something different. Obviously the game plan didn't work the first time, that she would be the one that thought to herself, I've got to bring something different. I've got to throw a monkey wrench in, because this type of fight didn't get me the nod last time. So I was real surprised that she didn't try to switch it up. And that's the reason why we've got the same decision the second time, except this time we had a stoppage. And like I said, it was a beautiful body shot. We didn't know what it was at first. I had to
Yeah,
watch it again.
her back was to us.
Yeah, had to watch it again, and you could see it. But that being said, Samantha's not the one to sit back with sour grapes either. Talk to her after the fight, uh, and a little bit the next day, and it wasn't, screw this, nothing like that. This isn't for me, or I was robbed or anything like that. It was, when can we do it again? What can I do next? What are some possibilities out there? Is there any ideas? She's still ready to keep at this thing, and she should. Very entertaining fighter, and she's in her fights at all times. So I like the one you mentioned, Sierra Buxton, being a like opponent that both of them just came up just a hair short. With Buxton was another one, went 5 rounds with Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a difficult person to get out as well. So that's I think that's the natural match to make right there,
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun, I think.
especially
Our,
in a June maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's in the works. We'll see.
yeah.
Our final amateur bout, main event on the amateur side, Josh Booker looked to defend his middleweight title for a second time as he put his undefeated record on the line against the also undefeated Andrew Stewart. It was an Agogi versus National MMA clash. We always think those are fun, and it was Andrew Stewart who kept his O intact. Second round TKO, I believe this was called TKO, over Josh Booker there, and the new Aries middleweight champion. As Booker drops to 4-1, Stewart moves to 3-0, and he is man. This was the shit hit the fan a little bit on this one afterward, but another fight that was really good action, very good intensity level. First round, very back and forth. I thought that both guys showed off, good wrestling. Both guys showed off a lot of toughness. I would have edged Booker the first round, but there was, I know we were talking like, that was a hard pace to keep as Booker starting to maybe slow down a little bit. We've seen him begin to look like he's slowing down in previous fights, but, continue to kind of truck on through the 5 rounds. But we didn't get any much further into the second round as I don't know exactly what we were like. I don't know, maybe 20, 30 seconds in, there was attempt at a shot from Josh Booker. It was from too far away. He fell short on it, and while he was kind of like down there at the ankle of Andrew Stewart, Stewart drops down a short little boop. That was more than a little boop because that was it. That was it was, dare I say, somewhat anticlimactic because I think most people just expected there
Because you
to
couldn't
be
see it.
you're
Yeah.
right, like there was to be like a barrage of punches at this point, but it was just this short little perfectly placed, I guess, like taking a little hammer to the to the
Yeah.
temple, and
It was a little
uh,
right. It was a hook. It was just a little hook right on the chin. Yeah.
and so the new champ, Andrew Stewart, he was very excited to say the least afterward, and very eager to see some of the matchups that come down the pipe there in a kind of reinvigorated 185 weight class all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing, just again, strictly my opinion, that I would disagree. I had it more than razor thin, or in the first round. I thought Josh Booker clearly won the first round. Just, I mean, his back time that he had, Andrew Stewart had to fight off a rear naked choke for a long time. It seemed like it. Josh Booker had that body lock in. And really had to dig down deep. I mean, I thought that we could have been close to seeing it end in the first round just with that back control and that tight body lock. Uh, but wow, kudos to Andrew Stewart to be able to fight it off. He was great with the 2-on-1, and he just dedicated every bit of focus on holding with two hand that right hand of Josh Booker's, and just pretty much if you're going to choke me out, you're going to have to fucking do it with one hand and one arm. Um,
But then at the end of that first round, he kind of
he
he
did.
was coming on strong and arguably landed the more damage in a
Yeah,
shorter amount of time. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was about 30 seconds left because I started looking back at the big screen and looking at the time, and it may have been that 30, 40 seconds left, but he was able to turn inside that body triangle and take top control. And like you said, definitely a barrage there. Again, maybe I'm more so thinking myself, what are our judges seeing? And
Yeah, right.
I just know that that control time probably weighed heavily on them. But it's all for nothing. It doesn't matter what the damn scorecards said in round one, because in round two, like I said, no sooner that the bell rang and we had just a small little feeling out period. Booker goes to take his first shot and try to take back control of the grappling. And I will say too, though, Booker in that first round he was way more aggressive than he's ever been in any of his
Mm-hmm.
fights. He was 100% mentally in this fight. He was aggressive in that first round, and it's something that we hadn't seen before. So that this was one that he wanted, and he wanted to impress and end it. But second round, like you said, he went right back in for that shot. Head was on the outside, is a little too far away. And as he was going down, low towards the knees and thighs, it was just the shortest right hook right on the button. And if you think back about the Dillahunty fight, again, it wasn't anything. It wasn't the big rare back, overhand or just Mike Tyson wide hook. The Dillahunty hook was the shortest, right hook. And it was the same thing again with this one. It happened on the other side of the cage from us. So, it took a split second to realize what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
The crowd definitely let us know what just happened.
Mhm.
But Stewart was able to pounce and get a couple more in real quick before the referee was able to get in there. All hell broke loose after that. We had an excited new champion who, again, it was just his third amateur fight. Didn't really heed the warning of keeping your ass in the cage after a bout. Uh, and yeah, I don't think a lot of people really understood how close this show came to getting called off in inning. We had to go do some major damage control with the state athletic commission to make sure that the rest of this card happened because our crowds got a little crazy. Which from the promoter standpoint, it's like that's what we want. We want a crazy crowd. They're
Yeah.
loud. They're crazy. But guys, if you're watching, you've got to stay the hell away from the cage, away from the catwalk. Stay in your seats, man.
And
Uh,
away from the
it,
commission.
yes, and away from the athletic commissioner because it was almost bad. It was almost a really bad situation that pretty much made me damn nauseous to think about what would have happened. But nonetheless, that's a whole nother story for another. Andrew Stewart, Josh Booker, it fucking delivered. This was the first fight that we announced on this card probably 3 months ago,
Mhm.
and it held together the whole time because it was a big fight that both of them wanted. And again, we've talked about it. There's just fights out there, uh, and if you were there, if you saw it, if you watched Cal Mays' post-fight interview with Andrew Stewart, if you were looking and paying close attention, Zane Burton crawled his ass up in that cage when the fight was over, and nothing bad, but had a small little conversation with Andrew Stewart. I'm sure he was just offering his services should they be needed. And in the post-fight interview with Kyle Mays, Andrew Stewart just said, when Kyle asked what's next, he goes, "Well, hell, it sounds like Zane Burton's next, so I guess that's what's next." And didn't sound like he was going to shy away from that challenge. So,
Be a hell of a fight.
hell of a fight. And again, we're just sitting here looking: Luke Wilson, Finn Martin, Andrew Stewart, Zane Burton. I mean, this little Chattanooga Nashville rivalry may continue.
Moving on to the pro portion of the card, before we begin, we had a shift from where when we recorded our preview last week. At the very last minute, we had two fires erupt that we uh, gratefully put out the best we could. Corey Delaney, bad weight cut, ended up having to pull out of his fight with Robbie Ring. Andrew Sturdivant, injury. Also pulled out of his fight with Josh Delgadillo. These things happened the day before the weigh-in, so yeah, you can imagine my dismay. And it was the only real solution that we could do at this point. What with the way that our commission works, and the card for the most part being locked at that point, was put the two remaining guys together. And so that's what we did, and we'll get into that here in a moment. But to lead off the pro card, it was two pro debuts going at it. Micah Sheffy representing Ring Combat Sports taking on Carter Beatman from Go Geek Combatives. Both very experienced amateurs. And man, Beatman, we hadn't seen him in a long time. It seems like a couple of years maybe since we've seen Beatman. I know he's been trying to make that pro debut, and it kept falling through. This time, it came to fruition. He gets a first round TKO over Micah Sheffy. Sheffy game, man. He was trying to do what he could, I think, to get that fight to the ground where he is had his best opportunity, I think, to be successful. But man, just Beatman throws with deceptive power at 155 pounds. And that's why I thought him and Xavier Horde would be a really, really fun fight. Beekman looked good out there, man. He was in great shape, very confident, and he scored a big knockout win in that pro debut.
Yeah, Sheffy, I could tell Sheffy's the kind of guy that is probably just a little more calculated,
Mm.
as a calculated approach to his fights. He needed this fight to slow down, and you're just not going to get that with Carter Beekman, and that's what he needed. He needed a slower pace fight. And you see a lot of fighters that are like that. They don't come out guns blazing. They trot to the center and they start calculating their next move. And that's just not Carter Beatman. It's not going to happen. He comes out like a tank.
He's like
Uh,
a bully out there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this was the longest from the time a guy licensed to his first, professional fight. Carter Beatman holds the record. He's been waiting for this a long time, so he was not slowing down at all. I'm more impressed. I've obviously known Carter Beatman or known of Carter Beatman for a long time, but this is the most I've ever heard from him as far as his pre-show interviews, his post-fight interviews, and things like that. And I was really impressed with the kid. Uh, the way he carried himself and the way he spoke. Seems to say all the right things, and uh, I hate to say surprisingly respectful, because there's nothing for me to think that he wasn't going to be surprisingly respectful. But I guess just when you fight with that bully mentality and attitude, you expect that that's what you're going to get from the person, and it wasn't. It's very pleasant to hear some of the things he said after the fight and in his post-fight interviews. My only hope now at this point is that we don't see that long layoff in between his debut and his sophomore outing, because I think again that layoff in between his last amateur fight and when he thought he was going pro, and then you add from the time he thought he was going pro to the time he finally stepped in the cage, it's been a long layoff, and I don't think it's going to do him any good to go through another long layoff like that. I think that adrenaline's pumping, the fire's hot right now. I think he needs to step on the gas right now and ride it. I think he needs to ride it, and some big fights out there for him. This is a kid that the way he fights, if he can get to 4-0, 5-0 with the way he fights,
I was about to say the same thing.
yeah, he could get some opportunities. He could get a good opportunity with his style, his look,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big part of it too. His look, his style, and the way he fights. It wouldn't take maybe that 4-5-0, and he would probably get an opportunity even above somebody with a bigger record than that, just based on all those things that we just listed off.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, man. Definitely be interested to see how the 2023 goes for him. If he's able to kind of get some momentum going, get some activity, get that record up there, see what happens. Up next, Robbie Ring took on Josh Delgadillo. As we talked about before, this was one that everybody had to roll with some punches here. Props to everyone involved for being willing to shift gears, because originally Robbie set to take on Josh's teammate Corey Delaney. So he had a completely different opponent change at the very last minute. Delgadillo originally supposed to fight Andrew Sturdivant, who only had one pro fight, and Robbie Ring with 5. It's a big step. No disrespect to Andrew Sturdivant, because very talented as well, but big step up for him going to Robbie Ring for Josh Delgadillo. He had put in the work. He'd gotten licensed. He wanted to make that debut, and I thought he was impressive, honestly. He is a guy that makes 135 fairly regularly, easily, and took this one at 145 and able to get a couple real big takedowns on Robbie. I think that surprised people, because I would imagine most people expected him to go out there and strike, especially seeing how Robbie has had the submission wins. But Robbie stayed very composed, well beyond, has a maturity beyond his years, especially in the cage. Several submission attempts from Robbie, and finally a triangle was the one that got it done. First round submission. Robbie Ring moves to 6-0. Delgadillo still is going to sneak up on some people at 0-1, and a guy that I still think we've got some real good fights for. I think him and Chance Gilbride or something along those lines would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, some people would say I'm dumb for saying this, but it's like, even in the defeat and how short the fight was, I was impressed with Delgadillo. I was impressed.
Yeah.
I told his coach Frank. I mean, he was on the catwalk afterwards. I was like, "Fucking thumbs up, man!" For one, he took the fight, and he came down and took the fight in a weight class that he preferred not to fight in, on short notice against a different opponent.
And not a lot of guys are lining up to fight.
Yeah, that nobody else wants to fucking fight, really. And so, thumbs up for that, but thumbs up for, the shot he took. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. When the bell, I mean, he took Robbie down. He went
Yeah,
straight in and took
twice.
Robbie down. Yeah. And it was that moment you went, holy shit, what do we got here? What do we got here? This is going to be a fight. But Robbie's at, again, I don't mean it disrespectfully. He's a different level than most, not just Josh Delgadillo, but most. And so, he's not going to get overwhelmed by a takedown. He's not going to. It's not going to get him out of his game plan. And he was able to, settle in and do what he knows how to do. We're talking about really a lifelong martial artist, even though his life hasn't been very long. He's a young kid too, but he's been doing it since he was a little kid. So he wasn't going to get overwhelmed by being taken down. He may have been surprised by it, like we were, but he wasn't going to get overwhelmed by it. But I just loved that tenacity and that go get 'em attitude by Josh Delgadillo. That fuck it, I'm taking it to him, and let's
Yeah,
just see.
yeah. I'm not gonna give. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
be. I'm not gonna respect this guy too much to where I don't fight my
yeah.
fight.
I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm not just going to stand out here and let him get his shit off on me and I, fuck it. Let's just go do it and let's see where it maybe this scramble will land us in a position that I can take some control and make something happen. And so I absolutely loved that attitude and that he did that. So um, Josh Delgadillo is going to be, a handful for most. He was a really good amateur, fought really good amateurs as an amateur. He didn't just take the cupcake route. Um, and again, we've seen it before. Where you look back at people like hell, I don't know, Charlie Alexander. Your first pro fights against Damir Farhabagovic. And this is going to be one of those times where he may have lost and he's 0-1, but Josh Delgadillo is going to be able to look back at some point when he's a successful professional with a good record and go, my first damn fight was against Robbie Ring, while Robbie Ring's,
right.
while Robbie Ring is in the UFC probably at
Yeah.
that point, and it'll make him a better fighter in the end. And hell, again, that kid's going to be in the UFC one day. And what kind of story is that, man? To be able to say, yeah, I fought him in my first pro fight.
Feature bout presented by Spectation Sports. Man, this one we talked about it. Just kind of a very very late edition that we were excited to host and talk about some characters. We had him here as the Canadian badass. Michael Dufour got the first round submission win over Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. In a lightweight contest, it got it done with a mounted guillotine that was deep. Man, that thing was deep. I give Luis credit, honestly, for being in
For as
as long
long
as
as
it
he
was
lasted,
because
yeah.
it looked very painful. And before it gets the win, I'm assuming some bigger things are coming from him from this win. A nice win over a UFC vet, a finish in the first round over a UFC vet. Like Luis Pena, and submitting him on top of that. These are not easy things to do. So yeah, congrats to Michael Dufour. Hopefully they had a good experience here from Montreal, and it seemed like he did in taking in some of this southern living down here. And got a bottle of proper 12 after the fight, and just a pleasant character to be around, to say the least. We'll be rooting for him. And see what happens to Luis Pena. You can tell he was not happy with his performance there, and maybe just a little shell shocked, I guess, is the best way to put it. It at least doesn't seem like the type to stay down for long.
No, I think I saw a post of his after, the next day or so, and it was just simply one word: disgusting, disgusted. And I don't think he was being sour grapes. I think he was just disgusted with
Yeah.
how it turned out in the performance. I'm sure. I don't think he took Michael Dufour lightly or underestimated him. I think he was just a little too calm in a situation. Maybe he felt he was just, hey, I've been here, I've done that, I've seen it all. Look at the people I fought in my career, um, and maybe just a little too comfortable, in the situation. But like you said, that was fucking deep, man. And I mean, the we had a clear shot at his face. I mean, and it was fucking deep, and his face was red, and he lasted for a while. And he flipped over a couple of times, wall walked and flipped. Tried to better his position, and I kept thinking, man, maybe he's going to get it. Maybe he's going to land in, side control or the right side, to where he can relieve some of that pressure. but Dufort was not having it at all. Yes, Michael Dufort enjoyed his time. I went and seen him the next morning after on Sunday morning before they went to a brunch before he got out of town, and very much loved his time in the states in Chattanooga, and I saw his post fight post too, just thanking the city of Chattanooga and the hospitality. He said everybody was so nice, but again, this was a guy who come to find out afterwards that the time in between when his fight was supposed to happen with Pena to the time when it did happen actually kind of sustained some injuries in that extra time, trying to prolong his camp that he shouldn't have had he been able to fight the first time. So there was a little, worrisome, just nothing major, but I think tweaked some things. So he had some adversity, coming into the bout. But I can't imagine what it felt like to these guys to think you're fighting on a Friday night and find out the weekend before or the Monday before that you're not, and then just that not knowing. I know there was probably a couple of shows that they were trying to get it on to see if they could get it work. So that up and down roller coaster about both these guys. Am I fighting this week? Am I fighting next week? Am I fighting this week? Am I fighting next week? Oh, is it 2 weeks from now? And being able to just hold that, hold the weight, hold the diet, hold the training, hold the momentum. It had to have been tough, but this was a really good fight for us to have on our card, and this was a really good fight for Spectation Sports to be able to showcase as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people tuned in to that one, which is good for everyone. So that brings us to our co-main event of the evening. Probably, I would think, safe to say, maybe with the exception of the Sammy Shire fight, one of the more just astonishing results that we had. I'm not just saying the result, just the way that we came about the said result more than anything, as it was the return of Ian Stevens, undefeated at 5-0, taking on Tristan Vines 5-2 out of Alabama. And the odds makers had Ian Stevens as a 10-1 favorite here. Very long odds for Tristan Vines, especially with Ian coming off such a layoff. But just an odd fight here, I thought, as Tristan Vines gets a unanimous decision win, 30-27 across the board. All three judges gave him all 3 rounds, and man, this was just this is like it was like Bizarro World. It was essentially Ian Stevens. The knock on him in the past had been, he played it too safe, take down, kind of lay and pray, not very exciting. And it's like the exact opposite thing happened to him. Like Tristan Vines managed to stave off all of the takedowns that Ian would chain together, got his own takedowns, and maintained top control for pretty much every round. Very cut and dry decision. I don't think there was any questioning which way it was going to go. I don't think there was any questioning where it stood going into the third round and what needed to happen. And ultimately, Tristan Vines got to be the biggest win of his career. Certainly very impressive young man as well. Just great to work with. Obviously, a good base, very good skill set. He's got good people around him. Moves to 6-2. Ian drops to 5-1. Sounds like he's going to be back in the mix pretty quickly. I was concerned that maybe his morale would be down after that, and he would dip off again for a while. But it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case.
No, he made the comment after when when are we back? What are we doing again? When is it? July? Well, find me somebody for July. So very much the opposite. This is one of those breakdowns. Breaking down this fight where I just kind of feel like the douchebag because I'm not a fighter. I've never fought, so I'm breaking down a sport that I've never done before myself. But I think my view or analysis of this bout, I think a lot of people would agree, and it was odd at the point where where you start kind of getting baffled was Ian just knowing he's down on the scorecards and would start pretty quickly into the second and third round on his back, closing guard around Vines and instead of at least keeping an open guard, like can I work a butterfly, can I try to shrimp out, can I move my hips, can I try to get out from under this guy, and he just close guard on,
Yeah,
it's
almost like he just accepted it.
And it was just like, this is not what we should be doing at this time. When you have to know that you're down on the scorecards. Um, but we talked about in the lead up. Thank God Action 24/7 got out of the business when they did of regional MMA, because they would have lost their ass on this one uh, from the Alabama folk betting on Tristan Vines with the odds that they laid on this one. But Tristan was at no point, we said it many times, he took this fight for a reason. He didn't take it to lose. He didn't take
Right.
it to come up here and just like there was just some money grab paycheck waiting for him to let me just take this, let me get this bag, as my kid says, and go back home. No, he accepted the fight because he felt he could win it. He didn't feel he could win it. I'm sure he was pretty confident and knew he was going to win in his that's his mindset. Um, but to watch Ian Stevens not be able to get somebody against the fence and not be able to take them down was just a really odd thing to watch. It was just a baffling thing. And I think we were all just more in shock. Like, it wasn't like he was doing it in weird positions. He had the guy back. He had Tristan backed up against the fence. Um, and usually that's just a spot where Ian Stevens is getting you to the ground. And it just wasn't. Tristan Vines reminded me of our new lightweight champion, Jonathan Martin, in the fact that they're guys that are their build is they're taller from the waist down than they are from the waist up, which means their hips are taller, up, and they've just got strong hips. And when he got his back up against the fence, um, and just kind of twisted and turned those hips, you're not getting them down, and that's what Jonathan Martin did to Pat Crumpton. Just very strong thighs, very strong hips. Um, and just like I said, taller from the waist down, to where everything is up higher. So getting under his butt is up here,
Hard.
and
Yeah.
you can't torque it, from the lower position because it's way up here. And it was a difficult thing for Ian to have to deal with. And again, to watch Ian not be able to get him down, but then also to watch Tristan initiate takedowns and take Ian down, it was just like, what the fuck is going on here? Like this is just not what I expected. But um, again, the long layoff for Stevens, not an excuse, but there's a difference between an excuse and a factor. It wasn't an excuse, but who knows? It could have been a factor, just being out of actual competition. Uh, training is great, and he's got great training partners. Don't get me wrong, but your training partners aren't necessarily trying to beat the shit out of you either. They're trying to make you better. And Tristan Vines is trying to win. He's trying to beat you up, and I'm sure that brings just a little different aggression and game plan than what training does. And so he's been out of the cage a while. I think the best thing for Ian Stevens to do is to get right back in and not put that long layoff and take the lessons that he learned in this fight and that kind of shell shock that I'm sure he went through, and right the ship, pretty quickly.
Up next, our main event of the evening, middleweight action. Torres the Punisher Finney looking to stay undefeated as he take on elevation fight teams Caleb Crump all the way from Colorado. And we got yet another decision here. We end the night on two decisions. Torres the Punisher Finney moves to 5-0 now as a professional, and in my opinion, his best win to date over his toughest opponent to date. Caleb Crump, very very game, was not going to roll over here. Was not phased by the hype behind Torres Finney, but ultimately it didn't matter. Torres, he got all the rounds, 30-27 across the board. All three judges had all three rounds, and big slams. I mean, I can't even count the number of times that Torres would pick him up for his head and parade him around back over to his corner, dump him there. You and I joked that would have been a good opportunity to hit some viral moments there potentially. He had so much control of him in those big slams, but Torres able to get the slams, able to get the keep top control for the bulk of the fight. Was not able to get him out of there. I thought that there were some good moments in where Torres did show some of the striking that we've been wanting to see what it looked like, and it's good. He had some moments where he had Caleb backed against the cage, had him hurt, and maybe just slowing down for just a second or two, he might could have lined up a knockout. Instead, instinctually he would take the positions that were easily given to him at that point. Caleb covered up. You have the easy takedowns, and so a well calculated, well thought out, smart game plan by Torres Finney moves to 5-0, and hopefully we see him getting some opportunities sooner than later.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I was really impressed with Caleb Crump. I mean, to not spend too much time on the loser of the fight or the guy that didn't win the fight. I was really impressed with Caleb Crump, and I think you and I, the more we kept diving into Caleb Crump and looking at his background and looking at his past fights, we both talked privately, off air and off record, that we just thought this was going to be a tougher opponent than what I think a lot of people were anticipating. And of course, a lot of those people are just huge Torres Finney fans, and uh, their thought process is no one's tougher Torres Finney, but the more we looked at it, we knew that Caleb Crump was going to be a tough out. And yes, Torres, dominated, like you said, 3 rounds to nothing, shutout across the board. But that doesn't tell the story of how tough, Caleb Crump is. You look at Torres's last fight on Icon. I mean, that guy was undefeated, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, that guy was undefeated. He was huge. Torres was able to get his ass out of there and barely break a sweat. Caleb Crump, was there for 15 minutes, and I think that goes to show how tough he was. Um, yes, he absolutely. If he would have thought about it, those were those moments when he literally has him up like a baby in one time, over his shoulder a couple other times. I mean, Torres, next time, go ahead and parade him around, give everybody the thumbs up, point to the judges, point to the camera before you dump your guy, and you'll go absolutely viral, my man. But I agree with you though. If there was just one knock, and it's a very small knock on the performance, we did get to see in the later rounds Torres' striking, which I think looked great and looked good. I think if he would have stuck to it, just a couple of more combinations, a couple of more that he
real
actually
close.
could
Yeah.
that he actually could have gotten a legit stand up, knockout or TKO, because he was right there and right at that moment where you go, one more punch is going to do
There
it.
it
One
is.
more punch. He
Yeah.
would he would dip down and try to and he would grab the legs, and you're just like, it was almost like
Yeah.
I'm like, that was almost it, or why'd you do that, you almost had him, because when the cover up comes and kind of, you'll notice the leg starts to come, the knee comes up where it starts to be that kind of cover up, someone's close. And Torres had, though, again, thanks for the DNA all over the canvas. Torres had it was just a solid knuckle punch, right square in the middle of the eyes on the forehead, that split Caleb Crump up, and at that point the blood was a flowing. But I do agree too. This was about the most complete performance that I've seen from Torres, because he was able to mix in his grappling, his ground and pound, and mix in his strikes and look good. He had a game plan and he stuck to it. There was a moment in the first round that even I kind of was like, "What the hell was that?" Torres is going to put you back against the cage, and kind of a la Dan Henderson, and just try to make you work off the cage. And the referee stepped in 20 seconds into, 20 seconds of no action, and there was a pull apart. And I was a little worried at that point, because I thought, if that continues, you are taking his a huge part of his game plan away. And how will that affect Torres if he starts getting kind of shell shocked that if I can't stay up here, where do in my game plan, where does that go? But hell, he didn't give a shit. He did it again and again and again, and at least it got better, and the referee's threshold lengthened a little more. But that was probably due to some of the things he heard from the outside of the cage and the crowd that made him think, maybe I should let this last a little longer against the cage. But it was beautiful, man. And who knows what's next for Torres? There was ideas and thoughts. Is this going to be the last time we see him here? Is it not? I really don't think him or his crew is going to make any quick decisions at this point, or and also not going to make any foregone conclusions that something is coming right away. I think they're going to go back in the gym and keep training and just see what happens next. And if something big comes, they'll look at it and decide to take it or not. And uh, if something not as big comes around, and I think they'll be just as apt to take it too, and just say, let's keep the train rolling. What looks better than 5-0, 6-0? So I don't think it's far fetched to say we could still see them on the regional scene on another fight, because I think their mindset is going to be, we're going to take another fight rather than be inactive.
Sure. Yeah, I like that attitude. Lots of things to think about in the coming months in the aftermath of this Aries 16 card. Lots of fights you and I are tossing about. We'll see if we can make them come to fruition. But I think if we can, you guys are in for a great summer, and we're excited for it. It's going to do it for us, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, you can check out the replay on Expectation Sports. Make sure you subscribe to our channel here on YouTube so you'll get notified when we post those fights up here for you. Jeff will be back May 12th, Cotton Eye Joe, gearing down, way down, for a amateur show at the Joe. It should be there. It'll be fun. If anything, it will be a lot of fun. A lot of debuts, a lot of brawls, a lot of fun ones, and we'll be back to check out the preview on that one here in just a couple weeks. Any parting words before we get out of here, Jeff?
No, don't get it twisted, guys. We say gear down just because we're saying gear down on
Relative to what we just
the
did.
production size and the work that we'll have to go. And the Joe's easy to work with, easy to get in and out of when it comes to build up and tear down. And it will be a fun card because these are a bunch of brand new guys, young guys. A lot of guys that
We got to freshen up the stock there for the
yes,
amateurs. Yeah.
a lot of guys that usually open up a lot of cards, getting their opportunity to have a show just for themselves, and that's what this one is purposely for. We did it before when we did Amped last summer. The very next show, we geared it down and had a fun show. For kind of the newbies, the new guys, and we're doing it again. It's by plan, guys. We're not falling off. It's a smaller show on purpose.
Until next time. Well, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just gonna say, but one last time, thank you for everybody in fucking Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah,
Thank
y'all were
you
awesome.
to all 32 of you fighters, because all those people, and it's you've got to say this. You could take it as a good thing or a bad thing, Tim, but I would say 90% of those tickets were bought because of somebody, because of a fighter. You guys pushed the hell out of that show. Those people were there to see you, and it was absolutely amazing. So thank you to the fans that bought the tickets. Thank you to the fighters that pushed the show. You guys are the ones that made that night special. And I dare you to do it again in July.
Yeah, we've got to raise the bar, man. We've set the bar high here at the Chattanooga Convention Center, I believe. And now it's our job to live up to it. I'm excited to try. For Jeff Hobbs, I'm Tim Lloyd. Thanks for tuning in to the 0 Hour. See y'all next time. Thanks.